What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Shinobi Squad Podcast. I'm fan service Renji.
I'm Shana Mostella.
If you watching on YouTube, welcome to the spooky edition of the Shinobi Squad Podcast. Are we filming from the graveyard? Who knows? Ooh.
Wow.
People out there wondering, like, that graveyard got some damn good lighting.
Hell
It's
yeah,
because
it
of
does.
this. It's because of this spooky tower. Okay, they got good yard lights. So.
And I'm wearing a tarot card dress that I made that completely glows in the dark. But I made this outfit myself, including the jacket, the fishnet jacket that I'm wearing. I'll do a little fashion show for you later, so stay tuned.
Fashion show in the graveyard.
Ooh. That's actually kind of a cool idea.
Yeah.
But disrespectful at the same time, you know.
No, just don't put your bare booty on someone's tombstone.
Definitely not.
Now that I'm looking at the framing of the camera, they can't even see the tombstones behind us anyway. Well,
It's spooky enough when we tried.
yeah, we tried. We tried.
And we got Skeletal Girl here, so.
Oh, and Black
Oh,
Snake.
the snake.
And Snake, see? We tried. If y'all just listen to this on iTunes or Spotify, just imagine a spooky background with great lighting. Or just watch it on YouTube. Throughout all these years of my life, I don't think I ever took a second to really think about the history of Halloween. I'm sure they taught me in grade school at some point. The history of Halloween within my family has always been parents were poor. They weren't out there trying to buy us candy like that. So when Halloween came around, they're like, you better be out there all night till you can't walk anymore. Bring home some candy for us. Maybe ask for some canned goods. And if they got any frozen meats we can have, get all that shit.
Your parents actually said that to you? To go and ask for canned goods and foods?
No.
Oh, I was going to say, because that kind of fits the origin story of where Halloween came from in the first place.
But I know my parents thought it.
I mean, they wouldn't have been too far off, though.
They didn't have a problem with us being out all night.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even supervise us at some point. They just let us run loose, and whatever time we came home is whatever time we came home. I remember some Halloweens where my parents weren't even home when I
Wow.
left or got back. All he had to know was I was going to be out trick-or-treating, and that's it. He's like, have fun. He never checked the candy, but I know my dad was probably thinking, what else can you guys get? Because, sometimes people give you money.
Mm-hmm. Halloween to me, growing up, in my preschool, kindergarten years, they would do costume contests for the kids, and we would dress up and get candy from all the teachers. But towards middle school, because I went to a Lutheran private school on top of that, they pretty much told us that Halloween was the devil's birthday, so we weren't really allowed to celebrate it in the school. So whatever we did outside of school, that was perfectly fine, but we couldn't do anything or really even have any fun on Halloween at school. So in school, it's kind of like, meh, whatever. But as soon as we got home, though, we went to all the neighborhoods and just racked up candy from everywhere.
But did your parents ever sit and talk to you about what Halloween was?
No, my parents never sat me down, and my family never told me what Halloween actually was. They just kind of touched on general aspects of it, because they're religious as well. They would say things like, well, it's kind of evil and it's kind of this and that, but they would still allow me to go get candy on occasion, only if I was with my aunt, because my mom would never take me trick-or-treating, but they would never say anything of history. My family never really explained to me the origins of Halloween. They would just say things like, Halloween's supposed to be evil, and it's for ghosts and witches and that whole thing. But they never said where exactly Halloween came from.
My dad never even questioned what Halloween was. He just knew kids dressed up.
Get free candy.
That's it. I wonder if my dad or mom really knew what Halloween was on the surface level, celebrating the dead or whatnot. I wonder if they would have changed their mind. My parents really are believers of the supernatural. I mean, not just my parents, but our whole culture. They spoke freely of ghosts and demons and possessions and stuff like that. And they were always like, well, if you do this, this is going to happen. Or if you see these signs, this person's probably possessed or they're haunted. So you should stay away from those people. So they always warned us about the supernatural. But on Halloween, they're like, yeah, go do what you want.
I'm surprised because I'm thinking maybe they might have had some kind of Halloween culture kind of thing going on around the time in their country, but they never said anything about it.
No, as far as I remember, there's only a handful of actual national holidays from where my parents are from. When it comes to spirits and the dead, it wasn't a special thing. It was something that they believed in everyday life.
I was going to say that. It's pretty much every day for them.
Yeah, it's everyday life. Even our funerals are very extensive. It's like the person passes away, then you have a 7-day ceremony, then you have the 100-day ceremony, and then you have like the 1-year anniversary ceremony. You leave out food and offerings for those that passed away. It's a whole thing. Parents spoke freely of times where they've experienced supernatural things. So maybe that's why Halloween wasn't a big deal. Because they're seeing kids dressed up as witches and stuff like that. They're like, I know a witch. She works at Walmart. As I said, we didn't talk much about Halloween in school. I did have one teacher, though, that was super cool and really started talking about Halloween. She even opened up a segment in class during the Halloween party where people could tell ghost stories. Most people were just telling stuff that they heard from somewhere else. Always just some dumb camp story.
A friend of a friend of a cousin.
A friend of a friend or a cousin, or just some rehashed Goosebumps story that they didn't think we knew what they were talking about. Like, bitch, that's from Goosebumps. Calling you out. Someone else told a story. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Episode 16. You bitch. I know the story about the taxi cab driver that died.
Wow.
There was this one dude spilled his heart out. He was serious. His name was Josh. He was really good at soccer, but he was kind of a dick. Anyways, he told this story about his mom. And when he told it, you could see his face change. It wasn't a story. This was something he's believed his whole life. He was pretty much like, when my mom was young, she had this big oval mirror, like the full-size body mirrors. It's the kind where you could flip it and it swivels from a mirror or just the back of it.
Oh, like a standing mirror.
Yeah, it was a full-size standing mirror. My mom would get ready at her vanity and look over at the mirror. For some reason, she couldn't look away from it. After having it for a couple months, Josh's mom started hearing voices and seeing things in the mirror. So she started to flip it over at night. Then one night, she woke up from her dead sleep because something was calling her to the mirror. She flipped the mirror over and she saw a woman, and the woman was angry with her. And then the mom just freaked out and went back to bed.
How do you freak out and then go back to bed? Like,
She probably just hid, but that's what he said. Then like the next nights, the mom tried to ignore the voices, but there was one night where she couldn't ignore it, and she finally looked at the mirror, and then the lady came out the mirror, walked towards her. The whole class is looking at Josh like, this bitch did what now? I just told a Goosebumps story, but so some bitch came out the mirror after your mom? And he's like, yeah. And it gets worse. And the whole class was just like,
everybody put down their Gushers and their Capri Suns.
Yeah, we was in 3rd grade. What started happening, this lady from the mirror would come out and just start beating the shit out of her mom, like just slapping her in bed, just slapping her in bed. And this happened every few nights for 2 years.
Damn.
What I wondered was why'd they keep the damn mirror for that long?
Right.
Nobody believed his mom.
2 years.
And it finally stopped when they moved out of that house and just left the mirror there.
Nice. I mean, they could have just thrown it away.
Maybe it was a nice mirror. I don't know.
Those are really nice mirrors, though, but they freak me out.
He didn't really explain much more, but half the class was like, holy shit. But then there was one guy in the class that was a bully, and he was like, that's a bunch of bullshit. Hey, no swearing in class. Like this kid literally swore in class, and the teacher caught his ass. So you're telling me this ghost came and slapped the shit out of your mom and she did nothing? And then poor Josh started crying because other kids started making fun of him. Man, that's worse than a Goosebumps story. The mirror that slapped the shit out of my mom.
Wow, that's bullshit.
Damn you mean 3rd graders.
That's mean.
Josh ran out of class crying.
Aw, poor Josh.
The teacher had to go get him, and then the rest of the kids just started making fun of him. The kids that were scared were no longer scared, and they all just laughed along. But I was like, holy shit.
You're like, nope, I know what that is. I'm not going over to your house ever.
Yeah. Never, ever.
Wow.
Then the next day, I talked to Josh during recess, and I was like, yo, I know the class laughed, but that shit scared the hell out of me, so I believe you. He's like, dude, nobody ever believes me.
Aww.
And he was trembling. I was like, well, that was pretty pretty ballsy of you to tell that story because you got to understand, there's a bunch of white kids from the burbs.
Was Josh not a white kid?
I couldn't tell what race he was. He was kind of like, he was one of those, for lack of better words, Hispanic races that kind of looked mixed.
Okay, so maybe he was indigenous.
I don't know, but
but I know what you're talking about, like European looking.
Yeah,
or...
he wasn't straight up, he's Mexican.
Right.
He's Cuban or whatever. But yeah, he looked kind of mixed, but I didn't know what he was.
Okay.
Again, being a third grader, you don't really think about those things.
I mean, it would explain a lot because in minority cultures, especially, they always have the best folklores and the best ghost stories ever. So no wonder he was scared out of his mind.
Yeah. The teacher didn't really stop him from telling his story.
Maybe she believed it.
The teacher kind of had a look like, I got a mirror like that.
Oh, no.
Because the teacher didn't stop him. She didn't tell the class, oh, it's just a story. Because the teacher was listening too. And the teacher's old enough to have seen some shit. So she probably had a black and white flashback like, I remember back in the 10s, 1910.
The 10s.
In the 10s.
I'm like, what?
Before the roaring 20s.
Was she that old?
She was old enough, yeah.
Oh, damn.
She was old enough to have flashbacks in black and white.
It was like old flapper,
Yeah.
black and white.
She was old enough to where family pictures were painted.
They called them movers back in my day.
The movers. Silent films. Her dad starred in the silent film. He was the guy that was tied to a train track.
Wow.
But that was the only time in school where a teacher actually got into Halloween, but that was so long ago. With all that said, let's pour out a little bit of drink for my third grade friend Josh for the pain he had to go through for telling that story. And let's transition to today's topic. On our way to Taco Bell, I asked Shana randomly, hey, do you know what the history of Halloween is? And she's just like, wait, what? What does that have to do with Taco Bell?
I was thinking about food.
But that just kind of raised a lot of questions of like the history of Halloween. Do other countries celebrate Halloween or do they have something similar? I want to know more. So instead of looking it up myself, I made Shana do the research so we could talk about it on the podcast today. So let me throw it to Shana. What do you want to talk about first?
I want to talk about the origins of Halloween and where it came from. Halloween, also known as All Hallows Eve or Samhain. Samhain, an old pagan holiday celebrated and then brought over to America by the Irish people back during the potato famine in 1845.
What's the definition of a pagan? I don't know that either.
It's a type of religion. It's something that isn't Christian or, anything else you've ever heard of. Their beliefs are very simple. They're more about nature. They're more about harvest. That's where the Lord's harvest and things of that nature came from. How they praise is giving back to the earth. So they're hippies, kind of. That's why a lot of people refer to pagans as like hippy dippy religion.
Oh.
Yeah, they're very more like kind of where witches come from, because witches are so into earth and giving back to the earth and praising the things that be around you, basically.
Oh, this whole time I thought like pagans was just a bunch of witches. I didn't know that witches are like pagans. I was like, oh.
I mean, a lot of them are, but it's a whole thing. Like, I don't want to get too into the whole pagan religion itself.
But on the surface, it's like
yes.
They're giving back to the earth and stuff like that. I thought if you're a pagan, you're a witch.
But that's what Christians called pagans. They called
Witches?
them witches because they were just different from
Whoa,
them.
we don't want to talk about what Christians call a bunch of other people
Yeah,
in this
right.
world. So, all right, go on.
Samhain, a lot of you guys have seen this word spelled as like Samhain, but it's pronounced Samhain. And this day marks the end of summer, the end of the harvest, and the very first day that starts the winter. This is what they call the dead period, because then, everything dies, all the fruits and everything start to like die off of the trees. So they just gather what they can and then just go inside for the winter. During this time, since it was considered like the dead period, this time was believed to be when the veil between the living and the dead was the thinnest. It's when the dead could essentially come back to earth and, have finished up some unfinished business and just be with people here on earth. This is where the association of death kind of centered around Halloween, because it's around the same time. That's why all the ghouls and, ghosts come out like around Halloween, and that's why it's pretty much associated with it.
So when the veil's the thinnest, the dead can come back and take care of unfinished business?
Yeah, it's the one day a year that the dead can come back and pretty much do what they couldn't do before they passed away, or wreak havoc on the living. Or back in those times, they just believed that ghosts and demons or other things from a different plane could come back and just do what they wanted because they could go between worlds.
Sorry, when you said that, I kind of thought about if modern day people passed away and they came back. Like, imagine millennial ghosts coming back to, like, finish a Final Fantasy game. Like, shit, I can never beat this boss. I got one day to do it.
Oh, my God. Would that be what you would do?
I mean, it's a good thought. Or it's like, man, I never made it through all the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies extended editions. This is my chance to watch it all in one day.
They could just come back and finish it.
Yeah.
That's what unfinished business means to you.
I mean, you think about modern day people, you know, like people of this era. It's not like we were out harvesting corn or anything. So what do most people of this day have that's unfinished business?
Wow. I mean that's one way to put it.
Because when it comes to ghosts, people only think about old-timey ghosts.
Yeah, true.
So
like
when
in the
people
1800s.
exactly people in little Amish clothing or pilgrim outfits, but if people from this era die, they're gonna be wearing like skinny jeans. Could you imagine 30 years from now seeing a ghost wearing skinny jeans with a cell phone,
What?
be like tweeting, "Oh shit, boo." Okay, let me finish my tweet. Anyways,
That's hilarious. I've never even thought of that because they would have to keep up with the times. They wouldn't just
Yeah.
go back to like woo,
Yeah, so
like
when-
chains rattling.
So when people of this generation die, especially like the TikTok generation, they unfortunately die young.
Yeah.
They die still on TikTok. Imagine the ghost that comes back. You're going to look in the corner of your house and it's going to be a ghost doing some dance to a camera like, "Oh, gotta get these views up. Gotta get these views
Wow.
up." And you're like,
What are you doing?
"Are you okay?" And the ghost can be like, "Shh, don't interrupt me.
I only got 12 more hours.
Gotta get this dance down for my TikTok."
Well, that's a less morbid way of putting things, but
Yeah, back then, unfinished business is like, I need to make sure my wife is alive. But now it's like, man, I need more views on this TikTok.
I'm dead and this is all I get. Oh, that's
Right.
so bad. That is so bad to think about.
I die for these subscribers.
Oh my God.
Don't die for subscribers, TikTok kids. We already talked about the TikToker that still was making videos after she shot her friend and she had an ankle bracelet on. So don't be like that dumb bitch. Dumb bitch energy.
She
Anyway.
got dumb bitch energy.
Yes. Anyway, Shana, back to your history lesson.
Now that I'm thinking about hipster ghosts and shit.
Exactly.
Let's take it back to 1845
Okay.
about the Druids and the pagans. Okay, so how they would celebrate Samhain, or aka Halloween. They would pretty much, as a religious notion, they would build a pyre or a stack of wood and set it on fire. And they would take all of the harvest that was dying already and throw it into the fire. And I think they were going as far as throwing animals into the fire for some reason. I don't know why, don't ask, but I read this on Google. They were throwing things in the fire to kind of give like a sacrifice or kind of give it back or give back to the earth or however you want to put it.
And that's where steak well done was invented.
And during this fire ritual, they would wear the heads of the animals and wear costumes and dance around the fire to do like a kind of ritual. And that's where costumes came from.
And furries. Actual furries, because it's actual animal heads.
Back to 1845. 400 years later, and I'm still speaking in terms of the origins in Ireland, when the Romans took over and conquered that area, they pretty much took their beliefs and the Samhain beliefs and put into one. The Romans honored the goddess of fruit and flowers and stuff like that. And this goddess, the symbol for her was an apple. And the tradition that you might see at some Halloween parties today is bobbing for apples. And that's where that came from, to celebrate the harvest part of this Samhain celebration.
Oh, they probably try to carve an apple and be like, this shit is too small. We got to go with plan B. Throw them in a bucket and dunk your head in it. Got it.
It was a game that they had played back then as well because they had a lot of apples, so they didn't know what else to do with them. There was a time of harvest, and a lot of people had apples, so they're just like, so now what?
There's a part of history that left out. Everyone was drunk, And they're like, what do you want to do with these apples? I just tried carving them, but I cut my finger off. I know. Throw it in that bucket of water. Now you go get it and bring it back over.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because alcohol does play a big part in some Halloween traditions in other countries.
Nice. See, I was right. The Romans got drunk and didn't know what to do with their apples.
They made wine and ciders and I don't know. They had fun. I forgot to mention earlier, when they were around this fire, throwing things into the fire and dancing around it, the pagans would often tell each other their fortunes for the coming year because this was also a time when it was the end of the old year and the start of the new year. So this is pretty much their New Year's Eve. So they would, tell fortunes while they're wearing their costumes. The townspeople would come to these pagan druid people and, ask them, like, how's my harvest going to be, da-da-da, and they would tell them. And this was a tradition that was passed down that came to America, and that's why fortune telling and witches are associated with Halloween.
I've never had any Halloween event include fortune tellers. That's interesting.
Some of them do. It depends on where you go. Like New Orleans will have something like that, or even Salem, Massachusetts might have something like that. It just depends on where you are.
Well, New Orleans has fortune tellers everywhere.
Well, yeah, but they incorporate into it heavily because it's Halloween. And most people, because the veil is the thinnest during Halloween, a lot of people will try to seek a fortune teller, someone that will help them do a seance to try to contact the dead so they can speak with them because it's easier to speak with the dead on Halloween. And this part is where I bring it back to your dad, not asking about, if there's any like other foods that you can get free from people. Trick-or-treating actually stemmed from people during the harvest. At the end of the harvest, everyone had like an overabundance of things and some people didn't. And the townspeople would go door to door asking for food or money or things that they had more of that they could, trade and spare and like pass on to everybody within the town. And that's pretty much where trick-or-treating came from.
We never had trick-or-treating in our culture, but the Buddhist monks used to march down certain streets and they would pretty much beg for their food. Mm-hmm. For those that don't know, in Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, Buddhist monks don't go to the grocery store and buy food. Even today, the tradition has always been they go to a village and they kind of line up and they have a basket and they walk down this line or this street and people give them donations. In food. One person will put rice in their basket, someone would put a piece of fruit or a piece of meat or just some meal, and that's how the monks got food. If nobody showed up that day and nobody donated food, the monks didn't eat.
And the reason these people would do this trick-or-treating like exchange thing is because this was the very last day of harvest. So anything that someone had overabundance of, they would give them to people who didn't have as much luck that year because the winter was coming and nothing was going to grow during that year. So this was the time to borrow things from people and gather what you could.
Winter is coming.
Y'all better stock up because they didn't have Costco back then, so they had to do what they could.
Where my parents are from, there is no winter, so I guess they didn't have that problem.
The rain is coming.
Yeah, the rain was coming. It was either hot or hot and wet.
The costume origin came from the fact that during this time, like I said, the veil is the thinnest. They did believe that demons and things from another plane would come and walk the earth. So they would wear costumes and masks to cover themselves up so that they wouldn't get caught up with a ghost or something from a different dimension or whatever. Or, they could walk around like normal and do what they had to do if they had to go out that day. Because most people, even back then, wouldn't really leave their house for anything other than harvest reasons or just finishing up everything that they could before they had to go in for the winter. So they would wear costumes that day so they could just go about their day and not get caught up and boxing with the devil on the street,
Yeah.
So they would, protect themselves and carry on.
That's an interesting concept, to get dressed up to blend in with all the evil or supernatural things. I never thought about it like that either. Like I said, this whole Halloween origin has been lost on me over the years, but now hearing it again is like, that's so smart. You got to disguise yourself to blend in.
Didn't we just see that in the anime, The Promised Neverland, where the kids had to dress like demons so they could walk around the towns full of demons?
Yep. And then The Walking Dead did that too. They did that early where they put the guts of the dead people on just to cover their face so the zombies wouldn't smell them.
So a lot of these traditions back in those times held true to what we now know as Halloween.
Could you imagine to live during those times? And your parents are just like, you better pick something scary because if they know that you're not one of them, you're screwed. Imagine that speech before you go to school. Hey, Shana, where's your costume? I'm going to be a flower. Ooh, child, you gonna be dead.
Now you know you can't hide amongst the dead as a flower. They gonna know it's you. You better get in there and put some blood on your face.
So take note, all you people with kids. Make sure on Halloween your kids dress up as something terrifying, because if your daughter or son's going out there looking like Sesame Street characters, Dora the Explorer, Blue's Clues, you better throw some old food on their face, make them stink so they blend in with the dead.
Man, somebody's gonna take your advice to heart and actually do that shit and be like, you don't want to get caught up with the devil out there now. Put some more SpaghettiOs on your face.
Right? You're going to see a BuzzFeed article. Worst terrifying costumes ever. Mother puts old dog food and SpaghettiOs on her daughter's face so she blends in with the dead after listening to a podcast. Actually, you're welcome, because the dead didn't snatch up your child because they stunk like death.
Don't do that.
Blend it right in.
Blend it in, blend it in.
Wearing a costume to blend in is just one thing. But what if the ghosts try to talk to you? Going back to what I said earlier about the millennial ghost, what if like this supernatural being from like the 1800s talks to you and they'd be like, "Excuse me, sir, where are ye bitches at?" Sorry, not all ghosts are trying to look for bitches, but maybe this one was.
The ghost had to keep up with the times.
The ghost did his research and was like, when you're looking for scallywags or whores, they may refer to them as bitches.
And not strumpets.
Not strumpets. But to be accurate, an old-timey ghost would be like, "Excuse me, sir, can you point me to the direction of the strumpets?"
I don't think we have any trumpets here. What?
And then that will give you away. So what happens when a ghost is like, "What do you mean you are unfamiliar with strumpets? You are dressed like one right now."
You're not a ghost. Wow.
So many questions are being raised. Someone needs to answer these questions. Like, how are you supposed to talk to an old-timey ghost? Are these old-timey ghosts up on today's lingo? Because, you know, when you watch Ghost Adventures, Zach Bagans and gangs is like, "What do you want? What are you doing here?" He ain't talking old-timey, writing in Old English.
They still know English, though. They know basic words. They did have an episode where they tried to reenact a certain period of time. So they played the music during that time. They even said, we probably shouldn't play around with the ghosts dressed like Confederate soldiers because someone's going to shoot me in the head. Like, one of the ghosts is going to probably shoot me from the other side of the veil. Like, maybe we shouldn't do this.
So many questions now. Ghost Adventures, y'all need to figure that shit out. Every movie we've ever watched, no matter what era the ghost is from, they always just talk to the ghost in today's lingo. The ghost is just sitting there like, "Huh?
What?" Maybe that's why the voice box never talks back.
Oh, good point. That is why the voice box never talks back. How people talk and stuff has all changed. So these ghosts must be sitting there like, "Subtitles, please."
What was really cool is the Ghost Adventures team actually did capture a voice that was from like a old time period from like New York or something. And they caught it saying a word that wasn't even in the voice box vocabulary. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying "I was hung," it said "I was lynched." It was things like that where they caught words that weren't even in today's vocabulary anymore. Those words would pop up frequently when they were talking to the ghost, and I thought that was really cool.
So if you see a ghost, first figure out what era it's from. Then you can figure out what kind of English to use.
Then you just confuse yourself because you don't understand Old English either. So
Exactly.
you're just like, "What thou the wait, what?"
Why does thee hither upon my homestead this morn?
Huh?
Exactly.
And then they answer you in like the same thing. It's like, "My horse come hither on thou from over there." Wait, what?
Subtitles, please.
They all speak in Shakespearean language. Like, I need some like footnotes to figure out what they're saying.
All the anime fans that just ride for subs right now be like, see, that's why subtitles are better than dubs, because you can't mistake what you read. Yeah, if the person writing the subtitles actually translate it correctly. There was a whole big stink about that on Squid Games. They're like, if you watch Squid Games with just the subtitles versus what they say in English, totally different show. So subtitles may be superior if the translation is actually correct.
I mean, for those who are sticklers about that kind of thing, you know what they're saying. Like, you know what they're trying to say to you. So why are you such a stickler? Because other languages are different from English. So I don't know.
Anyways, that's a whole nother argument.
That's a whole nother
Subs
argument.
versus dubs. Just let people enjoy anime however they want to enjoy it. Half y'all that ride for subtitles can't even speak Japanese or understand it anyway.
You think you do?
You think you do until you go to Japan and try to talk to a Japanese person. Oh, we know. Because we actually went to Japan, unlike 90% of y'all. It's a whole different game when you're actually in Japan and trying to talk Japanese with Japanese people. Now that we know the history of Halloween, we know the traditions and the origin stories. What's one thing from back then that you wish people still did now?
Halloween or Samhain was a time of giving where people would gather and trade their harvest that they gathered that year with each other and help people that were down and couldn't grow their own food during that season. It was pretty much just a time of giving. Like, people would gather around, tell stories and share stories about the dead. I forgot to mention that earlier. They would, wear the costumes. They would, have a genuine good time, kind of like Thanksgiving, I want to say.
It's what Thanksgiving's supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of just giving things, you're actually giving.
I wish Halloween was more of a time where it wasn't just about candy and trick-or-treating. I wish it was a time where people could feel comfortable enough to go to their neighbor and go to people that they would normally go to and ask for things, or feel comfortable asking for things if they didn't have it. Because even during the quarantine period last year, there's a lot of people who couldn't go to the store and couldn't get things that were, normally readily available for everyone, but there was a shortage of things and food items and toilet paper and things like that where people couldn't get it. So I wish that Halloween still had those same qualities about it.
That's what I was going to say too after hearing the origins of Halloween. It's like, damn, so Halloween was more about giving than actual Thanksgiving. People spend so much money trying to give out the best candy, decorate their homes. That money could just go to actually having things. Like canned goods, like I joked about my dad asking for. But some people, like my family back in those days, could have actually used it.
Yeah.
And as Shana mentioned, during the early stages of the pandemic, we all know people that were having a tough time. I had a couple friends from high school who were nurses, and they were doing decent in life, and they were actually just having tables in their front yard with boxes of cereal for people, for their kids and stuff. They would just have groceries, and they would post on Facebook, if you're in need of this and this and this, come to this address, no questions asked. Just come, take what you need, leave something for somebody else. Don't take it all. That's what we kind of need during these times right now. Even though it's 2021 and going into 2022, this shortage is still happening. We go to the grocery store now, and it's still looking like the pandemic just started.
Costco is finally fully stocked with toilet paper. Come get it while you can. I'm like, wow, Costco's been down in certain areas this whole time. And it's true. A lot of smaller towns, like the one we live in right now, are still in short of things. Things like Costco, like where you can buy things in bulk, those are still depleted as of today. So I kind of wish we can go back to those times where we felt we could go to somebody in need or ask them for things. We just have lost that whole mentality as people because we don't like to ask for things anymore. We feel like we can't because so-and-so is mean and so-and-so is a Karen and so-and-so is just being like having a really shitty time on this earth and don't want to give to anybody else. So,
or even worse, so-and-so wants to give, but they want to take a selfie with you so they can post on Facebook and be like, I gave Shana toilet paper. But Shana doesn't know I was able to give her toilet paper because I bought all the toilet paper from Costco. And if you go to my basement, every wall is filled with toilet paper.
But I did a good deed.
I caused the shortage, and now Shauna's family's suffering, but let me help them out.
It's so terrible.
And living here in West Michigan, we definitely know a few people that have family members that have definitely hoarded toilet paper, paper towels, and have confessed to us that their grandma, their aunt, has a whole wall full.
Still, it doesn't mean you have to take everything from everybody else because other people have families too.
Yeah, in LA, we were fortunate enough that we had multiple options. There's multiple Walmarts, multiple grocery stores, or whatever. If your town didn't have it, you can just drive 20 minutes over. There's another Walmart. But here in the town we live in now, there's only one of everything pretty much. So if that store's out, you're screwed because a lot of people that live in small towns won't travel 20 minutes over to the next town.
Yeah, lucky for us, California is a very wasteful state. Okay, they have hundreds, even thousands upon thousands of warehouses everywhere, statewide, everywhere. So if we needed something, like if we go on Amazon, for example, they're not going to be out of anything. It was just one of those things where it was fortunate, but California is a very, very wasteful state.
I mean, that's where all the money's at, too.
Yeah.
That's one of the blessings. It's like a lot of rich people live there. So
Yeah.
it's like they got to supply the rich people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to pay more for it. Don't get me wrong. Like, you still have to pay more for the things that they were out of. That brings me back to wanting people to be more giving. And I'm wishful that, people were more accessible to help other people that needed it instead of just pulling out their camera and being like, here's my TikTok video for the day. Hopefully it goes viral because I gave somebody toilet paper that needed it.
Another thing I wish that was still happening to this day, people actually dressing up to blend in with the dead.
Yeah.
That would make Halloween so interesting. All the sexy nurses, sexy toaster ovens, sexy refrigerators, sexy washer and dryer. They would think twice of those costumes. Oh, don't get me wrong. I love seeing me a sexy nurse, a sexy oil pan, a sexy dirty bathtub on Halloween. I love all the sexy ass costumes. Back in them days, I used to go out just to see people that normally wouldn't get ratchet, get super ratchet and let them booty cheeks, them titties, that dick balls, just whatever they was trying to do, just letting it all hang out. But Halloween would be even more interesting if people were still trying to be ratchet and scantily clad, but still trying to blend in with the dead. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not sexy nurse. I'm dead sexy nurse.
Right.
Look, my nipple fell off. Just seeing people actually being kind of like scared. Just seeing people on the street like, hey, are you a ghost? Do you have TikTok? What ye is TikTok? Ghost?
I'm sure the reason for them wearing costumes was so they could blend in and not talk to any ghosts.
But say you got caught up with a ghost, and I'm sure people back then had a ghost test. So if people back in them days, that means their ghosts had to be even older. What year did you say?
This is around 1845.
1845. So imagine if they saw like a caveman ghost.
Booga booga boo. Just beating their chest.
Exactly. Imagine you seeing him and you're like, is that a costume or a ghost? And like, that dude didn't even speak English. That dude didn't even speak.
He said, huh, instead of boo. I know. What were they afraid of back then?
I know. So if we see ghosts of like pilgrims and
Right.
people from back in the day,
It makes sense.
what did they see? Like Neanderthals? Dinosaurs?
Shit, I don't know.
Do dinosaurs have ghosts?
That's a good question. I don't know if they. I have no idea. That's
Ghost Adventures, Zach Bagans, you figure this shit out. So if we see things from hundreds of years ago, what did they see?
creepy ass things.
People from back in them days in America, they saw angry indigenous people
Yeah.
pointing fingers like, your granddaddy killed me, bitch.
They started it.
You slip up and I'm gonna curse you.
And mind you, a lot of this Halloween tradition started in Ireland and was brought over. Actually, I shouldn't say this was around 1845 because that's when Irish people came over to the Americas because of the potato famine back in 1845. So it's even older. Halloween started at an even earlier time than the 1800s in
Yeah.
Ireland.
So that opens up a question of like, what did the Irish people see?
Scary shit because all they have is like these awesome ghostly looking castles. How did the castles look back then? Were they like nice homes or something? And they just had like nice ghosts? I don't know.
That just opened up a whole nother door in my mind. Like, so Halloween came from Ireland, but you never see any like Irish scary movies. The only thing that came close to being stereotypically Irish was the Leprechaun series.
Oh my God.
And I'm not
you
saying
did not say that.
I'm not saying leprechauns are Irish
Oh my
per
God.
se, but I'm just saying in terms of Halloween
not
movies,
say
right? If Halloween came from Ireland, how are you gonna do Ireland like that and give them Leprechaun 1 through whatever, and then have Leprechaun in the hood, and then Leprechaun in space, and then Leprechaun goes back to the hood? Yes, Leprechaun actually went to the hood twice, and I was about to watch that movie the other night, but I found something else better to watch. But I was like, Shana, let's watch Leprechaun. And then I found someone else. She's like, wait, I thought we wanted to watch Leprechaun. I'm like, no, let's watch this.
We watched Till Death on Netflix. It's a new movie on Netflix starring Megan Fox. And she is gorgeous, by the way. Drop dead gorgeous.
Ooh, she's still a baddie.
Anyway. Bring it back, Shana. Bring it back. So this movie was starring Megan Fox, and basically, without giving away the whole movie, because if I say one thing, it's going to give away the whole thing. She's basically someone who married someone that, you know, helped her in her past, and like there was love then, but then she grew to resent this guy for whatever reason. And pretty much this guy is trying to make her life a living hell. And just watch it. It's fucking amazing. You go into it not knowing what the movie's about, and then it just gets real quick. And that's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to give it away.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where if you even read the description of the movie, it gives it away. So if you like thriller movies, just watch it. Don't even read the Netflix captions when they give you the description. Don't watch the trailer. Just watch the movie.
Yeah.
It is really good. If you're into thrillers and survival movies, it's good.
And Megan Fox is amazing in it.
If you
She's-
just like Megan Fox, because she's still hot after all these years later, after dating Machine Gun Kelly. Oh my God, I forgot how much I love Megan Fox. I kind of lost track of her after like the Transformers days, because Michael Bay kind of like blacklisted her, and then she came back for Ninja Turtles, and then I didn't see her ever since. But Megan Fox, I still love you. I'm sorry.
She could get it for real. I don't care how you might feel about her, what they say about her in the media, but scratch all that. Just watch this movie. It's amazing. She looks hot. Do yourself a favor.
Megan Fox, Till Death on Netflix. # not sponsored.
But I wish I was.
I wish I was.
I just wanted her to blow me a kiss so I can catch it.
Put it in my pocket for later. I forgot what we're talking about now. Oh, Ireland. Ireland.
What were we talking about? Huh?
Talking about Ireland. Yeah, I've never seen a lot of horror movies come out of Ireland.
We never really looked.
You would still see something based on an Irish folklore, based on this. They always make movies about Asian horror stories, based on a Japanese story, based on this. Koreans coming out with a lot of Korean horror stories. But Ireland, I don't think they've ever put out a movie that's come mainstream. And right now, Netflix is really pushing international movies. They're going out of their way to dub these movies in English, like how we watch Squid Games in English and a lot of other Asian movies and TV shows. They're going out of the way to dub these things in English. So it's like, where's the Irish horror stories if Halloween came from there?
Well, I bet if you actually spend time and actually dig through Netflix, you might find something.
I need to look that up, because now that I've been retaught that's where Halloween came from, I'm sure they got some good stories. Do you remember the original Leprechaun movie?
I remember bits and pieces of it. I remember Jennifer Aniston was in it, and I just remember him being a really ugly little thing, wearing a nice hat and green suit or whatever. I don't know.
The funny thing about that movie, when it comes to Jennifer Aniston, she refuses to talk about that movie.
I bet. It was very D-rate.
And campy.
Yeah.
I've been told by my friends who are horror movie fanatics like Akumajin that Jennifer Aniston refuses to talk about that movie in any press release. There's some journalists that try to sneak one in there, and she will just be silent. She'll be like, next question. She just refuses to talk about that movie. And it's like, why? Like, that's your humble beginnings. That's where you started. As corny as Leprechaun 1 was, it was a big hit. It put you on the map, girl. Like, be proud of that shit. Because then you get one of those started from the bottom, now we hear moments.
It was horrible. That's why. It was just a horrible... Even back then when I first watched it as a kid, I'm like, wow, this is a very shitty movie. It was very shitty.
It was shitty, but it went to theaters. It wasn't like straight to Blockbuster bargain bin. It was actually a production movie. It went to theaters. So that's why I'm just like...
That don't mean it's good.
I just think it's funny that she just refuses to talk about it.
I do too, but I can see why she won't.
Yeah. Charlie Sheen's been in some corny-ass movies as well.
Yeah.
But he ain't sitting there trying to deny it like Jennifer Aniston in Leprechaun.
Well, that wasn't as campy and as stupid as Leprechaun. Come on.
I mean, Leprechaun was so successful. They had so many sequels. Somebody's spending money on this. Why? Because it's still making money. So Leprechaun wasn't a flop. We've seen a lot of horror series that are one and done. Leprechaun made, I don't even know how many sequels. So if y'all know in the comments or in the live chat right now, let us know, because Leprechaun went hard.
I don't know any Irish movies, though, let alone scary
But
ones.
still, you don't have to know an actual Irish movie. But I'm just
like
saying,
a folklore.
films or folklore inspired by Ireland's history or whatever. Like, I haven't seen any movie with any folklore or origin story, anything even scary coming from Ireland.
Maybe it's something I just can't really think of off the top of my head right now, but I'm sure there is. The only thing that I've seen Ireland related or anything like that is these ghost stories, like Ghost Adventures, for example. They'll go to places like Ireland sometimes and see these places and go to these haunted castles and things. They'll talk about the ghosts that were there and ghosts from, 1800s or whatever that had a lighthouse, or this ghost haunts the hills of Ireland, or they haunt the haunted castles of Ireland. And, I've only ever seen that, where it's like Irish ghosts, but I've never really heard too much about their folklore. I don't know too much about it, or at least I'm not remembering them right now.
Maybe that's why nobody makes movies about that shit, because that shit sounds boring. Like, here's the ghost that haunts the lighthouse. It's like, you dead. Why are you still working? Why are you still turning on the light, bro? Just relax. Go enjoy the water. Nope, I'm a ghost. Got to get up and turn on this light for these boats that don't even use this lighthouse anymore.
But what is scary is that a lot of those castles aren't being used right now. So it is scary to see some kind of foundation in the middle of nowhere. So it is scary to see like these happenings, like ghosts and things haunting this area when there's nobody around. Because there's a lot of desolate places in Ireland.
Ireland does have a lot of like desolate places. I thought about going to Ireland for a vacation, but one of the things I wanted to see were these castles. But the issue was you have to rent a car and drive.
That's
it was
what I
a
mean.
journey.
Yeah.
These ghosts must be bored out of their mind. Like, man, when's the next tour group going to come? God, I've been practicing my haunts, but nobody's coming because it's off season. Imagine these ghosts right now during the pandemic because nobody can travel. Like, local Irish people ain't going there. That castle's haunted by Dave. I ain't going over to see Dave. I shit my pants once. And Dave's just sitting there like, come on, open up the borders. I'm bored.
Scare some tourists.
I know. I'm sick of hanging out with Duncan from the light tower. Keeps telling me the same dumb story about how his father worked his light tower. And now his father's dead in the ocean. Now his father haunts the ocean. I need some tourists.
We need to do like a ghost dub episode.
A ghost dub.
Man, come on.
Come on.
The ghost is out there complaining because there's nobody out there to scare.
Exactly. Just think about these ghosts in these tourist areas, like these rolling hills and these castles in Ireland or Scotland. The locals aren't going there. The locals know the story. They're like, screw that.
I know.
So these ghosts just depend on tourism. But if nobody comes because the borders are locked up,
they're just rotating this old ass lighthouse like, whatever. Boo. This is boring. Like, you could just hear the ghosts moaning from over the mountains, but it's because they're bored.
Yeah. They're not trying to scare anyone.
They're just making noise because they're annoyed. And everybody in the town is just like, can you shut the fuck up?
Shut up, Duncan. You're awaking the sheep. These ghosts are all up in the unemployment line. Come on.
There's no work for anybody.
There's no work for the ghost.
Wow.
See, these are the stories they never talk about during Halloween. We need more stories about unemployed ghosts in these tourist areas.
Man, I wonder how New Orleans was during Halloween last year. The ghosts are just up in like Madame Lalaury's house, just like, I'm stuck in this damn house.
Come on.
There's no one here.
I didn't commit these crimes just to be forgotten.
Madame Laveau is just up in the cemetery like, man, come on. Somebody come over here to my gravesite, man.
Come on, someone vandalized my gravesite if you can figure out which one it is.
The first quarter was probably just so quiet, except for the moaning of the ghosts that are just bored.
Right. They're up at the bar trying to order drinks.
They're like knocking from the inside of the window, seeing like actual people that live there, residents, like, hey, come here.
Wow. So with that said, go to New Orleans. The ghosts need your business. These ghosts need something to do. We can't really travel abroad to most countries, and if you do, you might not be able to come back in if you catch COVID. These ghosts in like New Orleans, they need your business.
No, they seriously do.
What else are they gonna do? If people aren't there being scared, more tourists aren't coming, so the local businesses are hurting. So go get drunk and go get haunted. New Orleans.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. Oh, it is cooling down in New Orleans, and with Halloween just around the corner, it is a great time to go.
It's just a hop, skip, and a flight away, you know. Shit, I might go down there myself.
Just thug it out. Drive down there. If you don't want to get in a plane, make it a road trip. Make sure you plan your route accordingly because you don't want to get stuck in the wrong backwater areas of Louisiana.
Or some like haunted plantation. Louisiana is haunted. Let's just cut to the chase. But
yeah.
You don't want to get caught in the sticks or in a swamp somewhere because there's a lot of swamps.
Make sure you plan out where your stops are going to be once you're below the Bible Belt of the U.S. Things get sketchy, especially if you're a person of color. So keep that in mind.
Them Cajun people just be out there doing whatever they want. It's awesome, but you don't want to get caught up in that shit.
Or the ancestors of former plantation owners. These people are still mad. Not saying all of them, but a lot of them are still mad that great-grandfather had to give up their slaves. If you're a person of color, be careful, but go to New Orleans. All right, y'all, it's about time we wrap up this episode. Hope y'all appreciated Shauna's history lesson about Halloween.
Yes.
I'm glad I made her do the research and talk to me about it during the podcast. I'm sure a lot of y'all didn't know it, or if you did, you forgot. So I'm glad we all learned something together. And now I'm also kind of questioning why there aren't a lot of horror movies based out of Ireland, but that's a whole nother discussion and something we need to figure out later. But before we go, speaking of Halloweens and masks and costumes, we're still taking commissions for Squid Game masks. Mm-hmm. If you haven't watched Squid Game yet, it's on Netflix. Make sure you check it out. It's only a couple episodes. You can probably binge it all in one day if you really wanted to, because honestly, we binged every episode but the last in one day. It was just that good. We got hooked that fast. By the time y'all see this podcast, Halloween is right around the corner. Depending on how many orders we have taken, we may be able to slip in one or two and get it to you in time for Halloween, but y'all got to order like right now as soon as you see this. But if not, we'll still be taking Squid Game commissions. It's going to be on our Etsy store, but you can always just hit us up on our social media, DM us directly, and get yourself a Squid Game mask.
We are also one of the few companies that actually puts the elastic band on the back so you can wear it. You don't have to do anything yourselves. It'll come fully equipped for you to wear for Halloween. So if you get it last minute, you can pop it on, wear it, go out for the night, and you're good. You're good.
This mask is made out of thick, hard plastic. So if you drop this, it ain't going to shatter. And y'all can't see it from there, but you can see through the mask. There's like a bunch of little tiny holes. Light does shine through it, so you will be able to see. Unlike a lot of people, our mask, these shapes are actually printed in. So if you want a square mask, I actually have to 3D print a square mask. A lot of other people just print a generic mesh mask and paint this on. And a lot of the times, these letters are crooked and aren't centered, but ours are printed on there. When you turn the mask sideways, the shape is actually raised up slightly. The mask is super durable, and it weighs like half a pound, so it's not going to strain you. So if you want this for cosplay, you could definitely wear this for a long period of time.
It would help us greatly if you would support us.
It will definitely help us out because our kitty is sick. We need to raise the funds to get her the treatment she needs, so we're trying to bust out as many of these pieces as we can just so we can get our kitty to the vet. We're definitely not trying to be these shitty pet owners that neglect their pets and go, oh, it's not a big deal. If our vet recommends it, we're going to take her in. So every sale we make is going to help our kitty.
Yes, she is our very best friend. She's a family member. We love her dearly, and we just want to take care of her, and we just want the opportunity to be able to. So any of your support that you can give us, even if you just share, please do us a solid and just help any way that you can, because we would greatly appreciate it, and our little kitty would greatly appreciate it as well.
All right, y'all. With all that self-promotion aside, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Shinobi Squad Podcast. I'm Fan Service Renji.
I'm Shana Mostella.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.